Hello, this is Ross Bliley from the podcast Pigskin Tales. This podcast is sponsored by Sterling Soap Company. With products sold throughout 41 locations around the globe, Sterling Soap Company has a unique assortment of products to choose from for your loved one for the holidays. Handmade artisan soaps created by Roderick and Amanda Lovin since 2012, these products are affordable and provide great value. Act now and save on your shipping costs. If you purchase $75 or more, your shipping cost is free in the United States. Shop now online at sterlingsoap.com.
Are you a hockey fan? Then you'll love Eric Zweig's new book, Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2. It's a treasure trove of untold tales, bizarre incidents, and captivating trivia that will leave even the most devoted puckhead astounded. The intense rivalries, epic showdowns, and historic clashes that shaped the NHL's early years, it's all in there. Zweig uncovers the true stories that helped shape the sport, ensuring that you will never look at hockey the same way again. Check out Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2 on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday's Sports on the Sports History Network. Today, we're going to talk about the 1981 Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals joined the AFL in 1968 and were the last expansion team in pro football until 1976. As with all expansion teams, the Bengals struggled in their first season, winning only 3 of their 14 games. The one bright spot was that running back Paul Robinson gained 1,023 yards rushing, earning him the AFL Offensive Rookie of the Year award. The Bengals improved slightly in 1969, finishing the season with a 4-9-1 record. Paul Brown won the AFL Coach of the Year award, and quarterback Greg Cook won the AFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. In only their third year in the league, the Bengals finished the season with an 8-6 record and qualified for the playoffs. They lost their playoff game to the eventual Super Bowl champion Baltimore Colts, but the future looked bright. Paul Brown was named AFC Coach of the Year for the second year in a row. After a disappointing 4-10 record in 1971, the Bengals climbed back to 8-6 in 1972 and made it back to the playoffs in 1973 with a 10-4 record. They lost that game to the eventual Super Bowl champion Miami Dolphins. They dropped to a 7-7 record in 1974, but bounced back in 1975 with an impressive 11-3 record before losing to the Oakland Raiders in the playoffs. The 68-year-old Paul Brown retired before the 1976 season and was replaced by Bill Tiger Johnson, who led the team to a 10-4 record. But despite the impressive record, Cincinnati failed to qualify for the playoffs. After a disappointing 8-6 record in 1977, the Bengals began the 1978 season with an 0-5 record, leading Johnson to resign. The new coach was Homer Rice, but Rice couldn't turn the team around, winning only 8 of his 27 games as head coach. Forrest Gregg took over as head coach in 1980, and the Bengals went 6-10. Bengals began the 1981 season with a 27-21 victory over the Seattle Seahawks after trailing 21-0 in the first quarter. Quarterback Ken Anderson played poorly and was replaced by third-string quarterback Kirk Schonert. The Bengals turned out 210 yards on the ground while giving up only 60 yards rushing to Seattle. Quarterback Ken Anderson had a good game in Week 2, completing 22 of 34 passes for 252 yards with 2 touchdowns. Anderson's primary receiver was Isaac Curtis, who caught 5 passes for 108 yards. Defensive end Mike St. Clair scored a touchdown on a 12-yard fumble recovery. The 31-30 win over the Jets gave the Bengals a 2-0 record. In Week 3, the Bengals lost 20-17 to the Browns. But the score was misleading, as the Browns completely dominated. The Browns had 31 first downs, while the Bengals had only 15, and 185 rushing yards to only 48 for Cincinnati. The total yardage was 422 for Cleveland and 281 for Cincinnati. The one bright spot was that Ken Anderson played well, completing 16 of 25 passes for 238 yards, including a 41-yard touchdown pass to Chris Collinsworth. A 27-24 overtime victory over the Buffalo Bills in Week 4 was an offensive explosion, as Bills quarterback Joe Ferguson threw for 287 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kenny Anderson threw for 328 yards and 3 touchdowns. Bengals rookie receiver Chris Collinsworth caught 10 passes for 111 yards and 1 touchdown, while Bills receiver Frank Lewis caught 8 passes for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. Bengals fullback Pete Johnson rushed for 85 yards on 22 carries. In Week 5, the Bengals outgained the Houston Oilers 357 yards to 187, but still lost the game 17-10. Oilers quarterback Ken Stabler threw only 6 passes, completing only 1 for 3 yards. But the Bengals defense couldn't stop running back Earl Campbell, who gained 182 yards on 37 carries. Ken Anderson threw for 290 yards, while tight end Dan Ross caught 8 passes for 96 yards and scored 1 touchdown. The Bengals defense held the Colts to 56 yards rushing in Week 6, but they gave up 336 yards through the air. But all that yardage only added up to 2 touchdowns. Kenny Anderson had another great game, completing 21 of 27 passes for 257 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tight end Dan Ross caught 7 passes for 106 yards and scored 1 touchdown. The Bengals breezed to a 41-19 win. In Week 7, the Bengals played a nearly perfect game against the Steelers. Their defense held Pittsburgh to 205 yards total and only 10 first downs. Ken Anderson continued his outstanding play, completing 16 of 28 passes for 346 yards and 2 touchdowns. Backup receiver David Werser scored a touchdown on a 73-yard reception. The Bengals gained 494 total yards en route to a 34-7 win. Perhaps the Bengals were feeling too good about their impressive win over Pittsburgh because they played poorly the following week against a bad New Orleans Saints team. Their running game was non-existent, gaining just 34 yards, and their passing game wasn't much better. Ken Anderson threw for 117 yards on 21 attempts before leaving the game with a concussion. His replacement, Jack Thompson, threw for only 81 yards on 20 attempts. Defensively, the Bengals couldn't stop workhorse running back George Rogers, who gained 113 yards on 31 carries and scored 1 touchdown. The final score was New Orleans 17, Cincinnati 7. In a Week 9 game against the Houston Oilers, the Bengals led 24-7 at halftime. The big lead essentially eliminated the Oilers' biggest weapon, Earl Campbell. Campbell, who usually got at least 25 carries in a game, was limited to only 14 carries for 74 yards. The Bengals defense also picked off Oilers quarterback Kenny Stabler 3 times. Ken Anderson played another outstanding game, showing no side effects from his concussion a week earlier. Anderson completed 21 of 30 passes for 281 yards with 3 touchdowns. Big Pete Johnson gained 114 yards rushing on 26 carries and scored a touchdown. The Bengals won 34-21. Bengals traveled to San Diego for a Week 10 matchup with the Chargers. This game would be a true test for the Bengals defense, as the Chargers had one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. The Chargers racked up plenty of yardage, 447 yards in total, but they only scored 17 points. Quarterback Dan Fouts was sacked 6 times and intercepted twice. One was a 102-yard return for a touchdown by defensive back Louis Breeden. The Chargers also fumbled the ball away 3 times. Kenny Anderson continued to play great, completing 18 of 28 passes for 288 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chris Collinsworth caught 4 passes for 97 yards, while Isaac Curtis caught 8 for 147 yards and scored 1 touchdown. The final score was Cincinnati 40, San Diego 17. In a Week 11 game against the LA Rams, the Bengals didn't do much offensively, gaining only 233 total yards. However, the defense played well, holding the Rams to 296 yards and sacking Rams quarterback 6 times. The Bengals defense also forced 4 turnovers, which the offense took advantage of in this 24-10 victory. Well, that will conclude the podcast for this week. Join me again next week, and we will look at the remaining games in the schedule of the 1981 Bengals. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and God bless.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. The heel gets the heat. The babyface gets the cheers. But the jobber gets, well, the job done. And speaking of jobbers, Barry Horowitz wasn't there to win titles. He was there to build them. By selling every move, every storyline, and every new star that stepped into the ring. He was the secret sauce. And now, he's the headline in his new book titled Wrestling is My Gimmick, My Life on the Wrong Side of the 3 Count. This memoir is a deep dive into wrestling's most underrated position and the man who made it an art form. Whether you're a fan of wrestling, a fan of sports history, or just love a great story, this book is for you. Again, that's Wrestling is My Gimmick by Barry Horowitz. Grab your copy today before the count strikes 3.